My son placed the documents in front of me and said, "We've decided you'll die in a nursing home. Sign the papers, or we'll have you declared incompetent." My hands trembled. My daughter-in-law watched from the doorway, arms crossed, a small smile playing on her lips. I signed. But what my son didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have known, was that my attorney had already... I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end. Let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. This is the story of how my own son tried to lock me away to steal everything I had, and how I made sure he lost it all instead. My name is Eleanor. I'm 71 years old, and for 44 years I lived in a craftsman-style house on Willow Creek Road, the kind of house with a wraparound porch where you could sit with your morning coffee and watch the fog lift off the valley below. The kind of house that held generations of memories in its walls. My husband Richard built that porch with his own hands the summer after we got married. He'd come home from his job at the engineering firm, change into his work clothes, and spend every evening sawing, hammering, sanding. I'd bring him lemonade and watch the porch take shape plank by plank. "This is where we'll grow old together," he told me the day he finished. "This is where we'll watch our grandchildren play." We had 40 good years in that house. We raised our son Michael there. We celebrated holidays, weathered storms, buried 2 dogs in the backyard under the old oak tree. When Richard was diagnosed with cancer, we sat on that porch every evening until he couldn't anymore. He died in our bedroom, in the bed where Michael had been conceived, holding my hand. That was 8 years ago. After Richard passed, everyone expected me to sell. The house was too big, too much maintenance, too many stairs. But I couldn't. Every room held Richard's ghost in the best way possible. His reading glasses still on the nightstand, his tools still organized in the garage, his handwriting still visible on the label of the circuit breaker box. I adapted. I hired a lawn service for the heavy yard work. I installed grab bars in the bathroom. I kept active, water aerobics 3 times a week, volunteer work at the hospital gift shop, book club every other Tuesday. My doctor said my health was excellent for my age. My mind was sharp. I managed my own finances, drove my own car, lived my own life. But to my son Michael, I was already a problem to be solved. Michael was my only child, and for most of his life, he'd been my pride. Smart, ambitious, driven. He'd graduated top of his class in business school, married a woman named Vanessa who worked in pharmaceutical sales, and climbed the corporate ladder at a logistics company until he became regional director. Somewhere along the way, though, something changed. I noticed it first about 3 years ago. The phone calls became shorter. The visits became rarer. When Michael did come by, his eyes would drift around the house, assessing, calculating. He'd mention property values in the area. He'd ask pointed questions about my retirement accounts. "Mom, have you thought about what happens to this place when you're gone?" "Mom, you really should add me to your bank accounts for emergencies." "Mom, don't you think it's time to discuss your estate plan?" I'd brush him off. I wasn't ready to think about dying. I was too busy living. Then Vanessa started coming to the visits. My daughter-in-law had never been warm to me. She tolerated our relationship with Michael, attended the obligatory holiday dinners, sent generic birthday cards. But she'd always kept her distance, as if she'd already calculated my value and found me wanting. Now, suddenly, she was interested, very interested. "Eleanor, this house must be worth a fortune now," she'd say, running her fingers along the original crown molding. "The market is incredible. You could sell tomorrow and make a killing." "I'm not selling." "But the maintenance alone must cost a fortune. Wouldn't you rather have that money liquid? Available?" "Available for what?" She'd smile that thin smile of hers.
For enjoying your golden years, of course.
I wasn't stupid. I knew what they wanted. What I didn't know was how far they were willing to go to get it. The first real warning sign came in September, about 6 months before everything fell apart. Michael called me on a Tuesday evening. Not unusual. He called every few weeks, brief conversations about nothing in particular. But this call was different. His voice had an edge to it. "Mom, Vanessa and I have been talking. We're worried about you." "Worried about what?" "About you being alone in that big house. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency and no one's there?" "I have my phone. I have neighbors. I have the medical alert button you gave me for Christmas." "It's not enough. We think you should consider other options." "What options?" "There's a wonderful assisted living community about 20 minutes from us. Sunrise Gardens. Vanessa toured it last week. They have activities, dining, medical staff on call 24/7. You'd be safe there, Mom. Taken care of." My grip tightened on the phone. I don't need to be taken care of. I take care of myself just fine. For now. But what about next year? 5 years from now? You're not getting younger, Mom. Neither are you. He sighed, that impatient sound he'd made since he was a teenager. "I'm trying to help you." "I don't need help. I need you to stop trying to put me in a home." The conversation ended badly. Michael hung up without saying goodbye. But the calls kept coming. Every week now, sometimes twice. Always the same theme. "The house is too much. You're not safe. You should downsize. Have you thought about Sunrise Gardens?" Then the visits resumed. Michael and Vanessa would show up unannounced, walking through my house like prospective buyers. They'd point out every scuff on the wall, every dripping faucet, every creaking stair. "See how uneven this step is? You could trip on that, Eleanor. Is that mold in the corner? This house is making you sick. When's the last time you cleaned out the gutters? The whole roof could be compromised." They photographed everything. At the time, I thought they were being thorough, documenting maintenance issues. I didn't realize they were building a case. The most painful part was watching my son become someone I didn't recognize. The Michael I'd raised had been kind, thoughtful. He'd brought me flowers on Mother's Day and remembered my anniversary even after his father died. But this Michael, this stranger who sat across from me at my own kitchen table, looked at me like I was an obstacle. And Vanessa? Vanessa didn't even pretend anymore. "You know, Eleanor," she said during one visit while Michael was in the bathroom, "it's actually quite selfish, you rattling around in this big house alone. Think of all the families who could use this space. Young couples, children. Instead, it's just sitting here, collecting dust, while you wait to die." I stared at her. "Did you really just say that to me?" She shrugged. "Someone had to. Michael's too soft to tell you the truth. But the truth is, you're being stubborn and irrational. This house should have been sold years ago. The money should be in an account where it can actually do some good." "Good for whom?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That night, after they left, I sat on Richard's porch in the dark and cried. Not because of what Vanessa had said. I'd long ago stopped caring about her opinion. I cried because I finally understood what was happening. My son didn't want to protect me. He wanted my assets. And Vanessa was pushing him to get them. I should have acted then. I should have called my attorney, updated my estate plan, protected myself. But I kept hoping I was wrong. I kept hoping that somewhere inside that cold stranger was still my little boy, the one who used to pick dandelions and present them to me like treasures. I was a fool. The day everything changed was January 15th. I remember because it was the anniversary of Richard's death, and I'd spent the morning at the cemetery replacing the winter flowers on his grave. When I got home, Michael's car was in my driveway, and behind it, another car I didn't recognize, a black sedan with tinted windows. I found Michael in my living room. Vanessa stood by the fireplace, and seated on my sofa was a woman I'd never seen before, a severe-looking blonde in a gray suit holding a leather folder. "Mom," Michael said, not meeting my eyes, "this is Patricia Holbrook. She's an elder care specialist." Something cold settled in my stomach. I didn't agree to meet with anyone. "We know. That's why we set it up this way. Because you never would have agreed, and this is important." Patricia Holbrook stood, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, professional, utterly without warmth. "Mrs. Chen, it's a pleasure. Your son has told me so much about you." "I'm sure he has." "Please, sit down. We have some things to discuss." I didn't sit. I stood in the doorway of my own living room, my coat still on, my purse still over my shoulder, and I watched these three people who had invaded my home. "What things?" Michael finally looked at me. "Mom, we've made a decision." "For your own good." "What decision?" "We found you a place at Sunrise Gardens, a private room. Very nice. We've already paid the deposit." My heart began to pound. "I told you I'm not going to assisted living." "It's not assisted living." Michael's voice was flat. "It's memory care." The words hit me like a physical blow. Memory care? I don't have dementia. "Mrs. Chen," Patricia Holbrook said smoothly, "your son has documented concerning behaviors over the past several months. Confusion, disorientation, difficulty managing daily tasks. These are early warning signs that shouldn't be ignored." "What behaviors? What are you talking about?" Michael pulled out his phone. "You called me 3 times last week asking the same question about when Easter was. Because you never answered me. You forgot to pay your electric bill in November. You got a late notice. I was traveling. I was visiting my sister. You got lost driving home from the grocery store last month. There was construction. They'd changed the road." For every accusation, I had an explanation, but I could see it didn't matter. They'd already made up their minds. Or rather, they'd already made their plans. Vanessa stepped forward, and for the first time, I saw genuine emotion on her face. Triumph. "Eleanor, let's be honest with each other. You're 71 years old. You live alone. You're showing signs of decline. It's only going to get worse from here. Wouldn't you rather be somewhere safe? Somewhere people can take care of you?" "I can take care of myself." "Can you?" She gestured around the room. "This house is falling apart. You can barely keep up with the basics. What happens when you really can't manage anymore? What happens when you fall and break a hip and lie on the floor for 3 days because no one knows you're there? That won't happen. It happens every day to women just like you, stubborn, proud women who refused help until it was too late." I turned to my son. "Michael, please, don't do this." Something flickered across his face. For just a moment, I thought I saw my boy again. The one who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd written me a poem for Mother's Day in 3rd grade, who'd held my hand at his father's funeral. Then Vanessa touched his arm, and it was gone. "Mom, this is what's best," he said. "You'll see. Once you're settled at Sunrise Gardens, you'll wonder why you resisted so long." Patricia Holbrook opened her leather folder and produced a stack of documents. "Mrs. Chen, we just need your signature on a few forms. Power of attorney, healthcare directive, and the transfer of your financial accounts to your son's oversight. Standard procedures for this kind of transition." I stared at the papers. I stared at my son. And I understood, finally, completely, what this was really about. "You want me to sign over Everything, I said slowly. My house, my savings, my retirement accounts, everything. It's for your protection, Michael said. So I can manage things while you're at the facility. So you can sell my house, you mean? Nobody answered. Vanessa picked up a pen and held it out to me. Eleanor, let's not make this difficult. And if I don't sign? Patricia Holbrook's expression didn't change. Then we'll be forced to pursue legal channels. Your son has documented evidence of your cognitive decline. A court could appoint him as your guardian, and then these decisions would be made without your consent. You'd take me to court? You'd declare me incompetent? Michael looked away. I don't want to, Mom, but if you won't do what's right on your own. I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had already cracked weeks ago, watching my son become this person. Something else broke. Something that had been holding me back. My fear. Because standing in that room, surrounded by people who wanted to steal my life, I realized something important. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was furious. But I wasn't stupid either. I'd read the stories. I'd seen the news reports. Elder financial abuse was an epidemic, and the perpetrators were usually family members. Sons and daughters who saw aging parents as piggy banks, who counted down the days until inheritance, who couldn't wait for nature to take its course and decided to speed things along. I knew that if I refused to sign, they'd make good on their threat. They'd drag me to court. They'd hire doctors who'd testify that I was incompetent. They'd show their manufactured evidence, the phone calls, the bills, the confusion. And a judge might believe them. But if I signed, I bought myself time. Time to gather my own evidence. Time to contact my own attorney. Time to fight back. Give me the pen, I said. Vanessa's smile widened. Michael's shoulders relaxed. Even Patricia Holbrook allowed herself a small nod of satisfaction. I sat down at my own dining table and looked at the documents. Power of attorney, giving Michael control over my finances. Healthcare directive, giving him control over my medical decisions. Transfer forms for my bank accounts, my investment portfolio, even the deed to my house. Everything. I thought of Richard. I thought of the porch he built with his own hands. I thought of 44 years of memories about to be signed away to pay for my son's greed. And I thought of something else, something they didn't know. I signed every document. I initialed every page. I dated everything properly and pushed the stack back across the table. There, I said. It's done. Michael actually had the audacity to hug me. You're doing the right thing, Mom. You'll see. When do I move to Sunrise Gardens? This weekend. We've already arranged transportation. Someone will come Saturday morning to help you pack. Saturday. 3 days. Don't worry about the house. I'll take care of everything. I'm sure you will, I thought. They left an hour later, taking their documents with them, leaving me alone in the house they planned to steal. I waited until I heard their cars pull away. I waited another 10 minutes to make sure they weren't coming back. Then I picked up the phone and called my attorney. Eleanor, slow down. Tell me exactly what happened. James Richardson had been my attorney for over 20 years. He'd helped Richard and me with our wills, our trusts, our estate planning. He'd handled the probate when Richard died. He was smart, thorough, and most importantly, he was on my side. I told him everything. The months of pressure, the accusations of cognitive decline, the ambush in my living room, the documents I'd signed. When I finished, there was a long silence. Eleanor, James said carefully, you signed a power of attorney and transferred control of your assets to your son? Yes. All of them? Yes. Including the house? Including everything. Another pause. I could practically hear him thinking. James, I know what you're going to say. I know I made a mistake. Actually, you didn't. I blinked. What? Eleanor, do you remember what we did after Richard passed? When you were worried about Michael and his wife? The memory surfaced slowly. It had been about 5 years ago. I'd mentioned to James that I was concerned about Vanessa's influence on Michael, about the way they seemed to view my assets. James had suggested some protective measures. The trust, I said. We set up an irrevocable trust. That's right, the Chen Family Preservation Trust. We transferred the house into it 3 years ago, along with the bulk of your investment portfolio. You're the beneficiary during your lifetime, with full control over distributions. Michael is the contingent beneficiary after your death, but only if you don't change the terms before then. So when I signed those documents, you signed over control of your regular checking account and a small savings account. Maybe $40,000 total. Everything else, the house, the investments, roughly $1.8 million, is in the trust. And you can't sign away trust assets because they're not in your name. They're in the trust's name. I sat down heavily. Michael doesn't know about the trust. No, we set it up specifically without telling him, as you requested. You said you wanted it to be private in case things ever got complicated. They've gotten complicated. So I hear. James's voice hardened. Eleanor, what your son attempted today is elder financial abuse. It's a crime. The fact that his scheme won't work doesn't make it any less criminal. What do I do now? First, we document everything. I want you to write down every conversation, every threat, every piece of pressure they've applied over the past year. Second, I'm going to review those documents you signed and see if there's anything we need to worry about. Third, we're going to have a conversation about your options. What options? You can press charges. You can sue for elder abuse. You can change the trust to remove Michael as a beneficiary entirely. He paused. Or you can let him think he's won while we gather more evidence. That last option appealed to me. There was something satisfying about the idea of watching Michael celebrate his victory, not knowing it was built on sand. Let's do that, I said. Let him think he's won. Are you sure? That means playing along, going to that facility, at least for a little while. I'll do whatever it takes. Then I have one more suggestion. I know someone who specializes in cases like this, a private investigator who works with vulnerable adults. Let me bring her in. The private investigator's name was Rosa Martinez. She was a compact woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd spent 20 years with Adult Protective Services before going private, and she'd seen every type of elder abuse imaginable. Financial exploitation by family members is the most common form, she told me when we met at James's office the day before my scheduled move to Sunrise Gardens. And the hardest to prosecute, because there's always that relationship to hide behind. I was just trying to help Mom. Dad wanted me to have the money. She was confused and needed guidance. That's exactly what Michael says. Of course it is. They all say that. Rosa leaned forward. Here's what I need from you, Eleanor. I need you to be my eyes and ears. You're going to that facility, and you're going to be the perfect cooperative resident. Confused, compliant, grateful for your son's help. You want me to play the part they've written for me. Exactly. Meanwhile, you're going to pay attention. You're going to notice who visits, what they say, what they take from your house. You're going to keep a detailed journal, hidden, of course, and you're going to report everything to me. What will you be doing? Investigating your son's finances, his wife's background, this Patricia Holbrook woman and her so-called elder care services. That facility, Sunrise Gardens, and its connections to family members of residents. Rosa smiled grimly. In my experience, schemes like this don't happen in isolation. There's usually a network, other victims, other perpetrators. If your son is working with other people, I'll find out. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. Michael came at 9 a.m. with a rented moving truck and two men I didn't recognize. Vanessa stayed in the car, playing on her phone. We're just taking the essentials, Michael said, not meeting my eyes. Clothes, personal items, whatever you need for the room. The furniture will stay for now. We'll deal with that later. Deal with it by selling it, he meant. Along with Richard's tools, our family photos. 44 years of accumulated life. I let them pack. I made myself small and confused, just like Rosa had advised. I asked Michael the same question twice. I couldn't remember where I'd put my reading glasses. I shuffled instead of walked. The men loaded my life into boxes. Michael supervised. Vanessa never got out of the car. Before we left, I walked through the house one last time. I touched Richard's armchair. I looked out the window at the porch he'd built. I whispered a promise I intended to keep. I'll be back. Sunrise Gardens was exactly what I'd expected, a facility designed to look cheerful while housing people who'd given up. Bright colors and motivational posters and activities boards and locked doors. My room was small. A bed, a dresser, a chair, a window overlooking a parking lot. The bathroom had grab bars and a call button and a shower seat. A prison cell with better lighting. Michael helped me settle in. He actually seemed emotional, hugging me goodbye, promising to visit every week. You'll be happy here, Mom. You'll see. Vanessa waited in the hallway. She never entered my room. After they left, I sat on the bed and took stock. I had my phone, hidden in a pocket James had sewn into my coat. I had Rosa's number memorized. I had a small notebook concealed in my underwear drawer. And I had something else, something Michael had forgotten about. Before Richard died, he'd given me a piece of advice. Eleanor, always have money that nobody knows about, a safety net, something that's just yours. I'd listened. Over the years, I'd skimmed small amounts from household expenses, birthday gifts, odd jobs, nothing that would be missed. I'd deposited it all into an account at a different bank, one Michael didn't know existed. $47,000. Enough to hire attorneys, enough to hire investigators, enough to fight back. Michael thought he'd taken everything. He hadn't even scratched the surface. The first week at Sunrise Gardens was reconnaissance. I attended the activities, I ate the bland food, I smiled at the nurses, and made friends with the other residents. I played the part of a sweet, slightly confused old lady who was grateful for her son's concern. And I watched. I listened. I documented everything. What I discovered made my blood run cold. I wasn't the only one. Half the residents I talked to had similar stories. Sons and daughters who'd worried about them. Surprise visits from elder care specialists. Documents signed under pressure. Assets transferred. Houses sold. My daughter told me it was for my own good, a woman named Barbara told me over lunch. Now she drives a Mercedes, and I don't have a penny to my name. My son said I was unsafe alone, a man named Harold said. 2 months after I got here, he sold my house, bought himself a boat. The pattern was unmistakable, and the common thread was Patricia Holbrook. Her company, Golden Years Transition Services, had been involved in at least a dozen cases at Sunrise Gardens alone. She'd help families transition elderly relatives into care facilities and conveniently facilitated the transfer of their assets along the way. I reported everything to Rosa. She's running a scheme, Rosa confirmed after 2 weeks of investigation. Patricia Holbrook connects with adult children who are looking to access their parents' wealth. She provides the professional cover, the elder care assessment, the documentation of cognitive decline, the smooth transition to a facility. In exchange, she takes a cut of the estate. How much? From what I can find, usually 15 to 20%. On a $1 million estate, that's $150,000 to $200,000. And the facilities? Some are legitimate places that just happen to receive these residents, but Sunrise Gardens specifically has financial ties to a company that Patricia Holbrook's husband owns. They're all in it together. Meanwhile, Michael was moving fast. Within a week of my arrival at Sunrise Gardens, he'd put my house on the market. I found out from Rosa, who was monitoring the listings. The asking price was $875,000, about $50,000 below market value. He's trying to sell quickly, Rosa said. He needs the money. For what? That's what I'm trying to find out. His finances are a mess, Eleanor. He's leveraged to the hilt. The house, the cars, credit cards maxed out, and there's something else. Some kind of business deal that went bad. I'm still digging. The first confrontation came 3 weeks into my stay. Michael visited on a Sunday afternoon, bringing flowers and wearing his concerned son face. He sat in my small room and made small talk about the weather, the food, the nice nurses. Then he got to the point. Mom, I need you to sign some additional documents. More documents? Just some paperwork for the house sale. The title company needs your signature. I looked at him, really looked at him. My son, my only child. The boy I'd nursed through chickenpox and taught to ride a bike and sent off to college with tears in my eyes. When had he become this? What documents exactly? Michael pulled papers from his briefcase. Standard stuff. Seller's disclosures, transfer of deed. Just sign where the tabs are. I made a show of putting on my reading glasses and looking at the papers. They were exactly what Rosa had predicted. Documents that would transfer ownership of my house directly to Michael, bypassing the trust entirely. Michael, I said slowly, this says I'm transferring the house to you personally. Right. Because I have power of attorney, remember? I'll sell it and deposit the proceeds into your account. The account you control. For your benefit, Mom. For your care. I set down the papers. I don't think I should sign these. His expression flickered. What do you mean? I'm confused. I don't understand what these documents do. Maybe I should have my own attorney look at them. You don't need another attorney. I'm handling everything. But I'm confused, Michael. You said I was confused. That's why I'm here, isn't it? Because my judgment can't be trusted? The trap was perfect. If I was too confused to live alone, I was too confused to sign legal documents. If I was competent enough to sign, I was competent enough to live independently. Michael's face reddened. Mom, stop playing games. I'm not playing games. I'm confused, like you said. You weren't this confused last month when you signed the power of attorney. That's because you explained everything so clearly then. But these papers are different. I don't understand them. I need help understanding them. He snatched the documents back. Fine. I'll explain them better next time. Maybe bring that nice Miss Holbrook. She was so helpful before. Michael left without saying goodbye. I watched from my window as he stormed to his car where Vanessa waited. Even from this distance, I could see them arguing. Good. Let them fight. Rosa called that evening. I found out why Michael needs money so desperately, she said. He invested heavily in a real estate development project that went bankrupt. He's on the hook for $340,000 in personal guarantees. The creditors are threatening to sue. If he doesn't pay up soon, he'll lose everything. His house, his cars, probably his job. So my house was supposed to save him. Exactly. Sell it fast, pocket the money, pay off his debts. Vanessa's pushing hard for it.
Her credit is tied up in this too.
What happens now that I won't sign? He'll try other approaches, pressure, manipulation, maybe even trying to have you declared incompetent legally.
But Eleanor, here's the thing.
He still doesn't know about the trust. He thinks the only obstacle is getting your signature. When do we tell him? Not yet. Let him keep digging his hole deeper. The more he does, the stronger our case becomes. The second confrontation came a week later. Michael didn't come alone this time. He brought Vanessa, Patricia Holbrook, and a man I'd never seen before, a nervous-looking individual introduced as Dr. Stephen Greer, a geriatric psychiatrist, who wanted to evaluate me. "Mom, Dr. Greer is just going to ask you some questions," Michael said, his voice tight. "Nothing to worry about." "What kind of questions?" "Just standard cognitive assessments to see how you're doing." I understood immediately. If I passed the assessment, they'd try to pressure me to sign the documents. If I failed, they'd use it as evidence to seek guardianship through the courts. Either way, I lost. Unless I played it exactly right. Dr. Greer's evaluation was textbook. Memory tests, orientation questions, logic puzzles. I answered carefully. Not perfectly, but not poorly either. I hesitated in the right places. I made small mistakes that any 71-year-old might make. When it was over, Dr. Greer conferred quietly with Michael and Patricia Holbrook in the hallway. I could hear fragments of their conversation. Borderline, not enough for conservatorship. Might improve with medication. Michael's voice rose in frustration. Then what do you suggest? Dr. Greer's response was muffled, but I caught the words more time and documented incidents. They wanted more evidence. They needed me to deteriorate. Vanessa cornered me while Michael was talking to the doctor. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she hissed. "Playing confused when it suits you, playing sharp when it doesn't. But we know what you're doing, Eleanor, and we're not going to let you win." "Win what, Vanessa? This isn't a game." "No, it's not. It's survival. Michael and I have worked too hard to let some stubborn old woman take everything from us. Everything I have, I earned. Or Richard earned. It's not yours to take. It will be, one way or another." She smiled that thin smile. "You can't fight us forever, Eleanor. You're old. You're alone. And sooner or later, you'll make a mistake. When you do, we'll be there." After they left, I called James and Rosa. "They're going to manufacture evidence," I said. "They're going to try to make me look incompetent." "Then we move faster," James said. "Eleanor, I think it's time to stop playing defense." "What do you mean?" "I mean it's time to sue. For elder abuse, financial exploitation, and fraud. We have enough evidence. Let's take them to court before they take you." The lawsuit was filed on a Friday. James served Michael at his office in front of his colleagues. Rosa made sure that copies went to Adult Protective Services, the State Attorney General's office, and the licensing board that oversaw Patricia Holbrook's certifications. The complaint alleged elder financial abuse, fraud, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It named Michael, Vanessa, Patricia Holbrook, and Golden Years Transition Services. It demanded compensatory damages, punitive damages, and a full accounting of any assets already taken or sold. And it revealed, for the first time, the existence of the Chen Family Preservation Trust. Michael called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, what the hell is this? You're suing me? Your own son? And what is this trust they're talking about? You never told me about any trust. Call me back. We need to talk about this." He called 6 more times. I didn't answer. The next morning, Michael showed up at Sunrise Gardens, pounding on my door. Mom, open up. We need to talk. I opened the door calmly. Hello, Michael. What is this lawsuit? What is this trust? Why are you doing this to me? I think you should come in. We don't want to disturb the other residents. He stormed into my room, his face purple with rage. I trusted you. I was trying to help you. And you've been hiding money from me?
Planning to sue me?
You were trying to steal from me, Michael. Let's not pretend otherwise. I was trying to take care of you. By putting me in a facility and selling my house without my knowledge? By working with a woman who makes her living exploiting elderly people? By planning to use my money to pay off your debts? His face went pale. How do you know about my debts? I know everything, Michael. The failed real estate deal, the $340,000 you owe, the pressure from creditors. I know that Vanessa pushed you into this because she didn't want to lose her lifestyle. I know that Patricia Holbrook was going to take a cut of whatever you stole from me. Mom, I also know that you've been lying to me for months, maybe years. I know that you looked at me and saw a piggy bank, not a mother. I know that you were willing to lock me away in this place for the rest of my life so you could take everything Richard and I built. Michael's legs seemed to give out. He sank into the single chair in my room. I never wanted. What did you want, Michael? He looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw my son. Not the schemer, not the manipulator, not the thief. My son, who was drowning and had made terrible choices trying to save himself. I was desperate, he said quietly. The deal went bad. I owed so much money. Vanessa kept saying we'd lose everything. The house, the cars, everything we'd worked for. And I kept thinking, Mom has that big house, all that equity just sitting there. If she'd just help us. You never asked for help, Michael. You demanded. You schemed. You lied. Because I knew you'd say no. You don't know that. Yes, I do, his voice cracked. I know what you think of Vanessa. I know you think we live beyond our means. I knew if I asked, you'd lecture me about responsibility and consequences. So I thought, if I could just get control, I could fix everything without you even knowing. Without me knowing I'd lost my house, my savings, my independence. You'd be taken care of. You'd be comfortable here. And I'd pay everything back eventually. I swear I would. I looked at my son, my only child. The boy I'd raised with love, who'd somehow grown into a man capable of this. Michael, do you remember what your father used to say about what matters in life? He shook his head. He used to say, in the end, all you have is your integrity. Money comes and goes. Success comes and goes. But integrity, once you lose that, you can never get it back. Michael's head dropped into his hands. Your father would be ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of you. Not because you needed money. Everyone needs money sometimes. But because of how you tried to get it. You were willing to sacrifice your own mother for your lifestyle. That's not desperation, Michael. That's a choice. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell the truth. To the court. To Adult Protective Services. To everyone. I want you to admit what you did and accept the consequences. I could go to jail. You could. Or you could cooperate and perhaps receive a lesser sentence. That's not my decision to make. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. And what about us? What about our relationship? I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness. That would take time, if it came at all. But something else. A recognition of the little boy he'd once been. The man he might have become. That depends entirely on you, Michael. Prove you're worth having a relationship with. Prove you can be the man your father raised you to be. And maybe, we can find a way back. The court case lasted 4 months. Michael cooperated just as I'd asked. He testified about the scheme, about Patricia Holbrook's role, about his own desperate choices. Vanessa refused to cooperate and hired her own attorney to fight the charges. It didn't help her. The evidence was overwhelming. Rosa's investigation had uncovered 17 other families victimized by Patricia Holbrook's network. Bank records showed the payments. Email chains documented the planning. Recorded phone calls, some made by me with James's guidance, captured confessions. Patricia Holbrook received 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud and elder exploitation. Her husband got 6 years. Sunrise Gardens was shut down, and its owners faced civil suits from dozens of families. Michael pleaded guilty to attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. He received 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and a requirement to complete financial counseling. He also lost his job, his house, and his marriage. Vanessa filed for divorce the week of his sentencing. She blamed him for everything, of course, said she'd been manipulated, deceived, pressured. The court didn't believe her. She received 2 years probation and a permanent record. The last I heard, she'd moved to another state to start over. Good riddance. As for me, I went home. Walking through my front door again after 4 months felt like taking a breath after almost drowning. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, thanks to James putting a hold on any sale and Rosa checking on the property regularly. I touched Richard's armchair. I looked at our photos on the wall. I stood on the porch he'd built and watched the sunset over the valley. "I'm home," I whispered. I kept my promise. The months that followed were about rebuilding. I threw myself into activities with renewed energy. I volunteered more hours at the hospital. I rejoined my book club and water aerobics. I started a support group for seniors who'd experienced financial abuse by family members. We met every other Tuesday in the community center, and word spread fast. Within 6 months, we had 30 regular members. I also became an advocate. I testified before the state legislature about the need for stronger elder protection laws. I gave interviews to local news stations. I spoke at conferences. The most dangerous predators wear familiar faces, I told an audience of 500 at an elder law conference. They call you mom. They say they love you. And they will steal everything you have while telling you it's for your own good. Don't be fooled. Don't be silent. Fight back. And Michael? He served his probation. He completed his community service. At an elder care facility, ironically, doing maintenance and groundskeeping. He went through financial counseling and declared bankruptcy, starting over with nothing. He called me once a month. At first, the conversations were awkward, painful, full of silences. But slowly, tentatively, we began to rebuild. I got a job, he told me 6 months after his sentencing. Entry level at a shipping company. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest. That's good, Michael. I'm renting a room from a coworker. It's small, but it's mine. A pause. I've been thinking a lot about Dad. About what he would say. What do you think he would say? I think he'd be disappointed. But I think he'd also say that it's not too late, that I can still become someone worth being. Your father was a wise man. So was his wife. It took 2 years before I invited Michael to dinner at the house. He drove up in a used sedan, modest, practical, a far cry from the luxury cars he'd once insisted on. He'd lost weight and gained gray hair. He looked older, humbler. We ate on the porch Richard built. I don't deserve this, Michael said, looking out at the sunset. I don't deserve your forgiveness. You're right, you don't. He flinched. But I'm not doing this for you, Michael. I'm doing it for me. Holding on to anger is exhausting, and I'm too old to waste energy on hate. So you forgive me? I considered the question. I accept what happened. I accept that you made terrible choices, that you hurt me deeply, that our relationship will never be what it was. And I accept that you're trying to be better. That's not forgiveness. Not yet. But it's a start. He nodded slowly. A start. I can work with that. We ate in silence for a while, watching the sky turn orange and pink. Mom, Michael said finally, what's going to happen to the house? When eventually. I smiled. Still thinking about my assets, Michael? He had the grace to look ashamed. I didn't mean, it's fine. It's a fair question. I set down my fork. I've updated the trust. The house and all my assets will go to charity when I die. The Margaret Chen Foundation for Elder Protection. It will fund legal services for seniors facing financial abuse. Oh. His face was carefully neutral. That's a good cause. It is. And Michael, it's not about punishing you. It's about making sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to others. That's the legacy I want to leave. I understand. Do you? He met my eyes. I do. I really do. And Mom, I'm glad. I'm glad the money will do some good. I'm glad it won't be wasted on, he gestured vaguely, on another boat, or another vacation, or another stupid investment. That's very mature of you. I'm trying. We finished dinner as the stars came out. Michael helped me with the dishes, just like he had when he was a boy. When he left, he hugged me at the door, gently, tentatively, like he was afraid I might break. Thank you, he said, for giving me a chance. Don't waste it. I won't. I watched him drive away, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I'm 74 now. I still live in my house on Willow Creek Road, still sit on Richard's porch every evening, still tend my garden and go to book club and volunteer at the hospital. My health is good, my mind is sharp, and my freedom is my... Michael visits once a month. Our relationship isn't what it was. It may never be, but it's something, a tentative connection, a slowly rebuilding trust. He's remarried now to a woman named Helen who works as a nurse. She's kind and practical and doesn't care about material things. They rent a small apartment and seem genuinely happy. She keeps me honest, Michael told me recently. When I start thinking about money too much, she reminds me what matters. I like Helen. The foundation I established is thriving. We've helped over 200 seniors protect themselves from financial exploitation. We've trained lawyers and social workers and law enforcement. We've changed laws. My story, this story, has become part of our educational materials. I tell it to every new volunteer, every client, every audience willing to listen. My son tried to steal my home, I say. He tried to lock me away and take everything I had, and I fought back. Some people ask if I have regrets, if I wish I'd handled things differently. The answer is no. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret exposing the people who prey on the elderly. I don't regret changing my legacy to help others. The only thing I regret is that it took my son's betrayal to make me understand how strong I really was. Richard used to say that crisis reveals character. He was right. But what he didn't say is that crisis can also create character. It can transform you from someone who's afraid into someone who fights, from someone who's trusting into someone who's wise, from someone who's silent into someone who speaks. My son handed me those papers and said, "Sign, or we'll have you declared incompetent." I signed, and then I showed him what incompetent really looks like. So that's my story. My son tried to steal my home and lock me away, and I made sure he lost everything instead. What would you have done?
If your own child handed you papers designed to take away your freedom, your home, your dignity, how far would you go to protect yourself? Leave me a comment. Share your own experiences. And if you know an elderly person who might be facing something similar, share this story with them. Let them know they're not alone. Let them know they can fight back. And if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, even when the enemy wears a familiar face, subscribe to this channel. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're never too old to fight for what's yours.